So the final chapter in the quest for justice for Junior Guzman Feliz, who, as you know, was brutally knifed to death outside of a bodega in the Bronx in 2018. The last 5 suspects sentenced last week and will spend the next 12 to 18 years behind bars.
So a total of 13 people have been convicted in Junior's death, and he would have turned 20 last November. Gang violence is an ongoing problem. So this morning we are joined by Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson to discuss public safety in her borough. So good morning to you. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you. Good morning.
So let's take a look at this. 13 gang members taken off the streets in the wake of Junior's killing. The NYPD recently released some crime stats indicating that overall crimes jumped 22% in 2022, but murders are down by 11%, and gun arrests are up. So the Bronx was a major focus for the NYPD, and it appears to be paying off. So what do you attribute that to? Is it the gang task force?
I think a lot of it is about collaboration and resources and putting more police officers in strategic locations across all of our commands. Patrol Borough Bronx has received an incredible amount of resources from police headquarters, and I want to thank Commissioner Sewell and First Deputy Commissioner Caban and so many others that really paid attention to the Bronx. When you look at major crime categories, it's typically the Bronx and Brooklyn North that are leading the city in all major crime. And I think last year we recognized that and we made sure that the Bronx was prioritized. So I'm very, very grateful at the level of resources, more cops. We've graduated more recruits. So we have more police officers on patrol, the NSTs, the neighborhood safety teams, who are tasked with getting guns off of the streets, thousands of gun arrests, and also going after gun traffickers as well. I think it's precision policing, and I think it's real tactics that are very intentional in going after those that are the habitual offenders of major violence in our borough.
Yeah, and not to pinpoint just one case in particular, but there was this stabbing in broad daylight on Friday outside of a Bronx middle school in particular, right? And I think that raised some red flags. Have there been any arrests made in that case? Any updates here? And would you like to see, say, more NYPD patrols specifically around schools?
That broke my heart. I represented that district in the city council, and I spoke with the principal and the school superintendent around the 14-year-old that was stabbed on a basketball court midday during school dismissal. Lots of children and parents around the Cortland, Caldwell, 163rd Street area. And, you know, the investigation is underway. There is a partnership with the NYPD school safety working together. And obviously we're going to get the individual, but the bigger issue is why do we have so much violence in and around schools and on playgrounds and basketball courts? And I think there has to be a real focus. And if you heard the mayor's preliminary budget last week, there is about $47 million invested going into NYPD school security. And we want to understand what that is. Is that school safety agents? Or is that lighting? Or more programs, more restorative justice? Because we know the only answer is not the deployment of more safety agents, but we know there have to be wraparound services for young people. And then access to weapons. Young people are bringing knives and guns to school at an all-time level. And we want to address that by the root causes of why young people don't feel safe in our neighborhoods in the first place.
Yeah, they seem to be getting younger and younger, people that are involved in these crimes. Let's switch gears now to the nurses' strike. The nurses back to work at Montefiore Hospital after ending their 3-day strike last Thursday. Now, while some of the staffing issues were addressing the deal between the hospital and the nurses union, it appears that there's still a critical need for nurses, though, especially at Montefiore, which has 700 nursing vacancies. So what do you think needs to be done to address that?
We are working closely with New York State Nurses Association. Certainly, I want to recognize the 7,000 nurses, everyday heroes and sheroes, essential workers on the front lines that were on strike for 3 days because they demanded the best contract, dealing with safe staffing issues, reducing the patient to staff ratio, and also not normalizing hallway patients. Many of our ERs, particularly at Montefiore, are overwhelmed at the site at Weiler, as well as the Moses campus. And we want to make sure that there is a real plan. So what I hope to happen now that the contract is in agreement and will be ratified is NYSNA, Montefiore executives will come up with a real recruitment plan on hiring nurses within our community, within our borough. job fairs? How can we retain these nurses so we don't lose them to other places? There has to be a real plan because 700 is a lot of nurses. And when you think about that, any vacancy means that current nurses are overwhelmed. And we want to make sure they're providing patient-centered care and they're taking care of their patients as they rightfully should.
Absolutely. So keep us posted on that, because 700 vacancies is a heck of a lot. I'm sure they're going to need some time to fill those spots, right? To get the nurses exactly the help that they so desperately need there. Let's talk about fire safety, Borough President. Front and center last week, right, as we marked the anniversary of the Twin Parks tragedy, right? It was just so awful what happened there. And then there was this recent report by Controller Brad Lander, we even had him on the morning show last week, which found there just continues to be these heat issues in more than 1,000 buildings across the city, including the Bronx. A lot of them are actually in the Bronx. And you know Monica Morales very well. She pays close attention to heat issues. What is being done? We're asking everybody, because it seems like we talk about it every winter, but here we are. So what's being done to deal with these complaints?
Thank you for bringing that up as a very critical issue. The 1 year recognition of the horrific fire at Twin Parks has been heartbreaking. We continue to mourn the lives of 17 neighbors, but we've learned a lot. We've turned pain into purpose and our storm into strength. And we have to make sure government and landlords are held accountable. They have to provide sufficient heat. Windows need to be insulated. Self-closing doors must close. We have to regulate space heaters. We don't want families to use space heaters. And we realize there are many families, many units in our borough where they are not getting sufficient heat. The windows are poorly insulated. The terrace doors are drafty, right? NYCHA. Lots of families, particularly seniors, are in need. And so we have to make sure that we're replacing windows, we're providing the proper heat and hot water, and we're checking closing doors to make sure they close. We're making sure that HPD inspectors, HPD, Department of Buildings, when they go out, we share the database, we share the information. So we're not working in a silo. I think over a year since Twin Parks, a lot of progress has been made at the federal, state, and local level. We've passed legislation signed by the president, by the governor, and the mayor, but enough is certainly not being done. We have to keep pushing. We also have to do a lot of fire education and safety workshops in schools, in community centers, in senior centers, working with Commissioner Kavanaugh and her team. And that's something we're doing now. It's the winter. No family should feel forced to use an oven or a space heater at night just to provide warmth.
Yeah, that help is so desperately needed, especially right now. Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson, thanks again for being with us this morning. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Happy Dr. King Day. Thank you.